Welcome to After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out when the roses are red, and the candles are lit, and love is supposed to feel certain sometimes. That is exactly when the truth decides to surface. Tonight's story begins on Valentine's Day with a reservation, a ring, and a surprise that was never meant to be shared here. Is what she wrote. I thought this was going to be the night he proposed. We had been together 4 years, 4 Valentine's days, and every single one had been romantic. But this year felt different. He had been secretive, guarded with his phone, whispering in the kitchen, smiling at messages, and locking the screen. I assumed it was because he was planning something, a proposal, maybe, or at least something big. He booked the nicest restaurant in the city impossible to get into without planning weeks ahead. Bought me a new dress, said he wanted me to look unforgettable, and when he said I demanded, the night felt cinematic. Candles, soft piano, music, other couples dressed in red, and black glasses clinking, nervous laughter. He was unusually quiet, but not distant, focused, like he was rehearsing something in his head. Halfway through dinner he reached into his jacket pocket. My heart stopped. He did not pull out a ring. He pulled out his phone, and his face changed color. Drained eyes locked on the screen. I asked what was wrong. He said nothing, just work on Valentine's Day at 9 at night. Work. I should have known, but I did know he was too busy imagining the ring. 10 minutes later, he excused himself, said he had to take the call outside. He did not come back. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. I finally stood up, walked toward the entrance, saw him outside, not on the phone, not talking, standing face to face with another woman. She was holding a small gift bag, red with white tissue paper, Valentine themed. I froze. He saw me, and his expression was not confusion. It was fear, the kind of fear that says this was never supposed to overlap. The woman looked at me, then at him, then back at me, and said, "You must be for her, not my name, not anything specific, just Harry." Felt the air leave my lungs. He tried to step between us, said it was not what it looked like. That phrase, the most useless sentence in human history. I asked him one question. Who is she? The woman answered before he could. I am his fiancée. Word hit like glass. Fiancée, not girlfriend, not friend, not collegiance. Had bought me a new dressmaid. Reservations. Smiled across candlelight and stood outside, meeting another woman, holding a Valentine gift. I looked at his hand. There was a ring on his finger, a thin gold band he had never seen before. I asked him, "What is that?" Silence. The woman looked confused. Then she looked at his hand too, and her face changed slowly, horribly. She said, "You told me you were divorced." Divorced? We were not married. But he had told her he was, and divorced. I realized something in that moment. We were not overlapping by accident. We were overlapping because he had scheduled it badly. He had 2 Valentine dinners, 2 reservations, 2 gifts, and something had gone wrong. The woman turned to me and said, "How long have you been together?" 4 years. I answered. Her eyes widened. She said, "We got engaged last summer. He told me he was on a business trip for 3 weeks. Italy. Turns out he was proposing to someone else." The restaurant staff was watching, people whispering, phones subtly lifted, recording. He grabbed my arm, said, "We should not do this here, not here." As if location was the problem, I pulled my arm away and asked him directly, "How many?" The woman looked at him too. How many? He did not answer, because the silence was already the answer. He did not answer. He looked at both of us like a man calculating damage, not confessing. The woman stepped closer to me, not hostile, not jealous, just stunned. She said, "He proposed to me in Florence last July, on a rooftop at sunset." He said it was the most honest moment of his life. Honest. The word almost made me laugh. I said he told me he was in Italy for work. She blinked slowly and said he told me he was finalizing his divorce. We were never married, but he had invented one to explain me to her. He had rewritten reality for both of you. She asked her name, Emily. She asked mine. I told her. We looked at each other. 2 women in red dresses standing outside the same Restaurant on Valentine's Day, with the same man, the same smile, the same promises. She lifted the small gift. Bag said she came to surprise him. He told her he had a late dinner with investors. Had labeled our dinner in his calendar as Client Relations 2 Stories. Same night, different lies. I asked him directly, are we the only two? He closed his eyes. For a second, that second told me everything. Emily whispered no. He shook his head and finally said, is not like that, which meant it was exactly like that. Emily stepped back as if distance would help her process. She said, we have a venue booked for September deposits. Paid, family invited. I felt my pulse in my ears. September. He told me he wanted to move in together officially this fall. I asked him, you going to marry her? He hesitated. That hesitation was louder than any confession. I said, were you going to marry her? Answered yes. The word came out small, but it shattered everything. Emily stared at him. Said you were single. He said, I am, which was technically true because he was not married, but morally meaningless. I said 4 years. Emily said 3. He had overlapped us, intentionally maintained 2 long-term relationships, built 2 futures, scheduled 2 lives, and somehow believed they would never collide. I looked at him and asked, do our families know? Emily said, my parents adore him. He spent Christmas with them. Christmassy. He told me he was visiting his sick uncle in another state. I asked him, were you ever where you said you were? He did not answer, because every answer would unravel another lie. Emily said something that changed the energy completely. I think I might be pregnant. Silence, real silence. Kind that makes strangers hold their breath. I looked at her. She looked terrified. He looked trapped. I asked, did you know? She said, I was waiting to tell him. Tonight, Valentine's Day, she thought she was bringing good news. I felt something shift inside me. Not jealousy, not rivalry, clarity. This was not about love. This was about access, control, validation. He did not want a partner. He wanted supply. Asked him again, how many? He said, just you 2. Emily and I looked at each other, and we both knew that was not true, because a man who runs 2 parallel lives does not stop at 2. Emily pulled out her phone, opened messages, hundreds of them, photos, voice notes, plans. He had told her he wanted 3 kids. I cannot have children. He knew that he held my hand during fertility tests and told me he did not care. Now I knew why he had outsourced that future to someone else. I felt the anger rise, but it was focused, cold, sharp. I said, open your phone. He refused. Emily said, open. I've said this is not necessary. Necessary? As if this was an HR dispute. I stepped forward and said, if you do not unlock it right now, me, both walk inside and tell everyone in that restaurant exactly what is happening. The staff, the couples, the cameras, all of. I hesitated, then unlocked ID, took it, scrolled. There were more names saved. Under initials, hotels, flights, conversations that ended abruptly, as if paused, not ended. Emily saw them too, and whispered, oh my God. He tried to grab the phone. I stepped back and asked, how many? This time he did not answer, because he did not know how many we had seen, and that fear, that uncertainty was the first crack in his control. Emily started crying, not loudly, just quietly, like someone watching their future evaporate. I felt strangely calm, because something inside me had already detached. He was not a fiancé, not a partner, not a future. He was a pattern, and patterns repeat until exposed. I handed the phone back and said, you are not leaving here tonight until you tell us the truth, all of it. He stood between us, not as a man choosing, but as a man cornered. Emily wiped her tears and said, start talking, all of. I looked around, as if searching for an exit. There was none. He said, I never meant for this to overlap like this was a scheduling error, not 2 entire lives. I said, you booked 2 Valentine dinners. That is not overlap. That is design. He ran his hand through his hair, then said something that shifted everything. There was someone before both of you. Emily and I exchanged a look before meaning what he said. 3 years ago, there was another engagement. Word hit like a second wave. He said it ended. She found out what he did not answer, because we already knew she found out about someone else, which meant this was not the first time. It was just the first time we caught him together. Emily asked how many serious relationships. He hesitated. 4 not dates, not casual, 4 long-term commitments running partially at the same time. Different cities, different stories, different versions of himself. I asked, did any of them know about each other? He shook his head. You think I am stupid? The confidence in that sentence. That was the core. He believed he was smarter, better at logistics, better at compartmentalizing. I asked why. He finally looked honest for the first time. He said, I do not like being alone. That answer felt too small for something this big. I said, that is not loneliness. That is consumption. He looked at me confused, like he had never framed it that way. Emily said, were you going to marry me? He nodded yes. And stay with me? He hesitated. Yes. The honesty was brutal. He had planned to marry her while keeping me. Believed he could maintain both even after a wedding, even after vows. He said I was going to phase things out, slowly phase things out, like we were subscriptions he could cancel without impact. Emily asked, what about if I am pregnant? He went silent, because pregnancy changes timelines, and timelines break systems. I realized something important. This was not emotional chaos, it was operational failure. His model collapsed because 2 Valentine reservations collided. That was the only error, not morality, not guilt. Logistics. Emily suddenly straightened. Her tears stopped. She said, we are not fighting each other. I nodded, because that was the trap. He expected jealousy, competition, expected us to argue, to blame, to fracture. Instead, we aligned. She said, we go inside together. He panicked. No, do that, please. For once his voice was not controlled. It was afraid. I said, you have been performing for years. Let us perform now. We walked back into the restaurant side by side. He followed, trying to whisper, trying to negotiate. The hostess recognized us, asked if everything was all right. Emily smiled politely and said, we just need to clarify something at table 12. His table, our table. Couples turned their heads subtly, because tension is visible even when words are not. Emily lifted the gift bag, pulled out a small velvet box, not engagement, a baby shoe, tiny white, with a ribbon. She placed it in front of him and said, I was going to tell you tonight, but I think she deserves to hear it too. Gasps quiet, but real. He looked around, humiliation spreading across his face. For the first time, he was not controlling the narrative. I said calmly, tell them. He whispered, this is not necessary. I raised my voice slightly. Tell theme. Couple at the next table was openly watching now. He swallowed and said, I have been in relationships with both of them. Word relationships, as if equal, as if innocent. Emily said, tell them about the wedding. He hesitated, then said, I proposed. Applause did not follow. Silence did. Heavy, judging human silence. Hostess stepped forward, concerned, asking if police were needed. I said, no, just the check. He looked at me, stunned. The check? Yes, you are paying for both dinners, because tonight we close the account completely. The restaurant was silent, not chaotic, just silent, because everyone understood this was not a lover's quarrel. This was exposure. He paid the bill, hands shaking, card declining once, then going through. Even that felt symbolic. His system glitching outside. Cold air hit hard. Reality settling in. Emily looked at me and said, I am not done. Neither was I. We stood there while he tried to regain composure. He said, we do not have to ruin each other. Ruined, there it was. He still believed the damage was mutual, as if betrayal is equal to response. Emily said, do your parents know? He shook his head. Mine do. She said, they think you are their future son-in-law. I added, my family thinks you are about to move in. He closed his eyes and whispered, please, not tonight. I said, you picked tonight. He tried a new tactic, soft voice, looking at me. Only we built something real. Do not throw it away. I answered, you already did. You just assumed I would not notice. Emily stepped forward. There is something else, she said, something he did not tell you. He looked at her sharply, but it was too late. She continued, He asked me to sign a prenuptial agreement. Before the wedding, I felt a cold wave run through me. Prenup. For what she said it had a clause. If I filed for divorce within 5 years, I would leave with nothing. Nothing. He said it was to protect assets. But now I understand. It was protection from exposure. He was planning the exit before the ceremony structuring. Future silence. Even marriage was a risk management strategy. I asked him, did you ask the others for prenups? Said that was different. How he did not answer Emily said there was another clause. If I disclosed personal information publicly, I would owe him damages. He tried to legally silence her. Before she even suspected, I looked at him and said, you do not love people, you hedge them. The mask cracked for a second. Anger surfaced. You are both overreacting. He snapped, I never forced anyone. You volunteered lies. That is worse, Emily said. Are there more women? He stayed quiet. That quiet was confirmation. I asked her. There are other fiancés. Hesitated, then said, not currently. If timing was the issue, not morality. Emily took out her phone and said, I am calling my father now. He grabbed her wrist, not violently, but urgently. Do not. That small physical movement changed everything because it showed desperation. I stepped between them. Do not touch her. He looked at me like he did not recognize me. Because I was no longer reacting emotionally, I was decisive. Emily made the call. Speaker on her father answered. She said, Dad, the wedding is often. You need to hear why he tried to interrupt. I held eye contact with him so he understood we were done negotiating. Her father listened. Silence. Then one sentence. We will handle this. He went pale, because now it was not two women. It was families, legal resources, public circles. He said, this will destroy my career. And that was the first honest thing he said all night. Emily ended the call and said, good. He looked at her, hurt, as if he was the victim. I asked him something final. When were you going to end one of you? Said, after the wedding. Which one? He did not answer, because the truth was neither. He would have tried to maintain both until collision again. Patterns do not stop. They escalate. Emily said quietly, you would have married me and still kept her. He did not deny it, because denial was useless. Now I felt something unexpected, not heartbreak, not rage, relief, because the illusion was gone completely. He was not complex, was predictable, and predictable men collapse when exposed. He asked one last question. What do you want? I answered calmly, everything in writing. Every message, every account, every contract, every lie. And then you disappear from my life completely. Emily nodded. Same. For the first time he had no leverage, no secrecy, no narrative control, just consequence and Valentines. They turned into audit night. The next morning, my phone did not stop vibrating. Messages, missed calls, screenshots, because someone in that restaurant had recorded everything. A short clip. Emily holding the baby shoe, me standing beside her. Him silent, was online, not viral, but visible. Enough. His name attached, tagged, connected. He called me immediately, not to apologize, to ask how to take it down. I said I did not post. I asked if I could contact the person. I said you managed everything else. Managed this? He hung up. Emily texted me her father had already called their family lawyer. The prenup was void, because deception invalidates consent. That word again, consent. He had built relationships, contracts, engagements on false information legally. That matters. By noon, his company had placed him on leave pending internal review, because public scandal in finance is not good optics. He texted, you are destroying my livelihood. I replied, no. Your patterns are. Emily confirmed. She was pregnant. Doctor appointments scheduled. She invited me not out of friendship, out of solidarity. I did not go, but I appreciated the gesture, because something unexpected happened. We stopped being rivals and became witnesses to the same truth. 3 days later, another woman reached out. Different city, different timeline, same story, engagement. Secret overlap. He had been rotating cities like territories, spacing them far enough to avoid collision until Valentine's Day, until scheduling failed when confronted. He said it was never about manipulation. It was about feeling wanted. I answered, being wanted by many is not the same as loving one. He tried one final time, said we could start over, as if trust regenerates like software. I told him something simple: love without integrity is just attention, and attention fades. The fallout expanded. Emily's father pursued civil claims for wedding deposits, emotional damages for documented deception. The other woman filed her own complaint. I did not need to do much because the structure was collapsing without my effort. He asked me one last time in public, daytime, neutral place. He looked different, smaller, not because of shame, because of exposure. He said, was any of it really thought about it? And answered honestly, yes, was real to me, but you are not. That is the difference. He nodded slowly for the first time. There was no calculation in his eyes, just recognition. He said, I do not know why I did. Heidi, do you just never wanted to stop silence? Then he asked, what happens now? Said, now you live one life and deal with it. The wedding was officially canceled. Deposits lost, invitations void, family embarrassed, career paused, legal cases pending. Baby will be born into truth, not illusion, and that matters. Months later, Emily sent me a photo. Sonogram. She wrote, at least this child will never live inside a lie. I looked at it and felt something unexpected. Peace, because exposure is painful, but clarity is clean. Final update she posted, read, I thought Valentine's Day would bring a proposal. It brought an audit, not just of him, of myself, of what I ignored, of what I excused. Did not just cheat, he constructed. When construction is built on deception, it eventually collapses, not because of revenge, because of physics. There you have it, 2 women, 1 restaurant, 1 baby shoe, and a man who believed he could manage love. What do you think? Was he addicted to attention or incapable of attachment? And if you had discovered the second life, would you have exposed him publicly or walked away quietly? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This has been After Dark Chronicles, where the real stories come out. If you enjoyed this Valentine special, the next chronicle drops Wednesday at 10 p.m. and trust me, it is darker. Hit subscribe so the algorithm knows you are part of the After Dark family. And remember, when someone splits their life into compartments, they are not protecting love, they are protecting control. Until next time, stay sharp, stay aware, and remember, the truth waits patiently until it no longer has to. After Dark.